our community has the biggest financial challenges. It seems crazy to me that we give discounts to everyone else but the disabled community. There's struggles with obviously the extra costs. I think Scope put it at £1,095 a few weeks ago. And actually, I quite often say, if I took that out of your pay pack every month, I bet you would notice it.
Ooh. Welcome to The Wheelchair Activist, a podcast hosted by me, Emma Vogelman, and every month I interview amazing members and allies of the disabled community who are quite literally changing the world. So welcome to The Wheelchair Activist. I'm joined today by a very exciting guest, Georgina. So it would be wonderful if you could tell our lovely listeners a little bit about you.
Of course. Thank you for having me on the show. So I'm Georgina. I'm the founder of Purple, the UK's first disabled discount website.
Anytime I hear the word discount, obviously ears perk up. But yeah, tell us what Purple is and how it's specifically for disabled people.
Of course. So I'm disabled myself. I have MS. I was diagnosed back in 2003, so I've had it a long time. And I've also got ADHD. A couple of years ago, back in 2022, I was out shopping and realised that my son could get a student discount in the shop that I was in, but there was nothing for me as a disabled person. Yet, I'm sure you're well aware, it's really expensive being disabled. I spend a lot of money on my healthcare, as I'm sure many of your listeners do. So the idea it was like a flippant comment, but it sat in my head and went round and round, which I now know is probably my ADHD trait. And I was like, I have to do something about this. So we did lots of research, me and my husband. There was nothing out there that was offering this service. So I decided to launch Purple. We spent 6 months building our technology to enable us to verify documents that show that someone has a disability. And then we launched the website in July last year. So we are a year old. And we give discounts for people who have disabilities. We don't care what disability someone has. As long as you have one of our accepted documents, that's all we ask for.
So much I want to get into within that, but I think what people would be interested to potentially find out about first is what are those documents and sort of how do you go about verifying someone is disabled? Not so why do you do that?
So it's really hard, isn't it? Asking someone to prove they're disabled is not what we want to be doing. But in order for us to get the discounts from the brands, we have to have a closed group environment, which means a bit like Blue Light Card, there isn't an email address that every disabled person has. So we have to, unfortunately, ask people to prove their disability, not what type of disability they have, but to prove that they have one of the documents that we accept. Then we can let them into the group and then they can get access to the discounts, but also they can get into our Facebook group, and that's a safe zone for our members. We don't want someone getting into that group who isn't really disabled. And sadly, there are people that if they see we can get 10% off your weekly shop from Morrison's, for example, that's an exclusive offer for Purple, they're going to want to take advantage of that and try and get that discount because it's human nature for some people. Therefore, we have to have those rules and we have to be quite strict as well. It's just the way it has to be, sadly. But we take quite a wide variety of documents. So it can be as simple as your blue badge. It can be the access card because we work with them. It could be a CEA card. We can take an NHS diagnosis letter. You can upload a disability benefit letter, a disabled bus pass, a disabled train card. So there are lots of options. We want people to get the discounts if they should have the discounts. Once you sign up, you just upload your document. And a lot of it is done automatically. As long as you put the photo the right way around, the piece of paper the right way around, then it's automated. If not, we manually verify some documents. For example, there's a lot of digital letters out there, and there's a lot of digital letters on the internet. So we have to be really careful because things can be manipulated. So we would ask for further evidence as well if needed, if someone only had a digital letter. We don't accept bank statements. We don't accept text messages just because, anyone could probably put one of those together if they really wanted to. And I hate to be skeptical about these things, but unfortunately, I know what people will do to access things if they can. So we are strict, but with good reasons.
Mm. And before we get into the brand side of that and talk about sort of, why that's important for brands, I think I'd love to get from your perspective why you felt that this was so needed. I mean, we talk a lot on the show about the financial barriers that disabled people experience and research that shows that, some of those extra costs that we incur every month, just to receive the same standard of living as a non-disabled person is now over £1,000 a month. But for, playing devil's advocate or playing the, well, why should they get a discount and why don't I get a discount? I'm wondering if you had anything that you wanted to say on that.
So our community has the biggest financial challenges. It seems crazy to me that we give discounts to everyone else but the disabled community. Take blue light, for example. I'm not doubting that the nurses and doctors, especially the frontline staff, don't deserve that discount. But many people in the NHS have very good salaries, very good benefit packages. We don't have that in our community, not for everyone. There's many people in our community who don't have that opportunity to go and have a job that gives them those benefits. There's struggles with obviously the extra costs. I think Scope put it at £1,095 a few weeks ago. Now, I live and breathe those costs, and there's people who are probably have way more costs than I do. I'm not permanently in a wheelchair. I don't need a carer to come to my house, but I have extra heating costs. I have a lot of costs for things like physiotherapy that I pay for to keep my body as mobile as possible. These things all add up. Equipment to help me move better, gadgets that I use, things on my fingers to stop them bending. All these little things add up as well as the big things. And so you put that with the fact that many people can't even find a full-time job or can't work a full-time job because of their condition. It seems unfair that we weren't getting discounts. We should be the one community that does get discounts. My
Mm.
son's been a student. He probably had more disposable income at his fingertips than many people in our community. That's why it just seemed wrong to me that everyone else was getting it and not our community.
I think that that's really fair, though, how you put it. We know that there's so many barriers to people finding work and then also staying in work and advancing in work as well to be able to get to those, higher and higher salaries. And, I really agree with you that we need to be looking at ways that we can address those extra costs. And part of that is, by companies, brands engaging in awareness around disability or awareness around those extra costs, awareness of the value of the purple pound, which, I'm sure we'll go into and we'll talk about. But there are so many barriers that are in place to, as you say, getting some of the benefits that either students or particular employment or different occupations allow. So, one thing I'm sure a lot of people are curious about is what type of brands do you work with?
Oh, we've got so many. When I started the website, it's a bit like chicken and egg, isn't it? You need it, discounts on the site to get people to come to the site. So at the beginning, it was more we just got whatever discounts we could get. But now we're focused on those more strategic partnerships like we have with Morrison. So that exclusive partnership where it's a bespoke discount for our community, 10% off every shop with Morrison's, as long as it's delivered or click and collect. It's not in store yet, but we hope to one day. They're the kind of discounts that we're now really focusing on. But we have lots of different discounts. We have 9% off Ninja and Shark, and that's on top of sale price. We have discounts with Poundland. We've got discounts with smaller brands. We have discounts with disabled entrepreneur businesses because we support those small businesses as well. We have discounts off Debenhams. There's so many, it's hard for me to know. Sky TV, mobile phone, utilities. There's all sorts of things. Sometimes it's like, I think with utilities, there's EDF, you can get a gift card if you sign up to one of their tariffs, or with Octopus Energy, you can get an energy credit. So there's different options with different brands. We always try and get a discount that can be applied to everything, like a kind of 10% off whatever you buy or 20% off. But that's not always possible. It depends on what company it is, whether it's their own products, whether they're just resellers, and then the margins are a lot tighter. So there's lots of nuances between different offers and how we get them, but always putting the community first. So I'm always saying I want the best discount and giving the reasons why, all the things we just talked about. And, it will take time. I'm building something that doesn't exist at the moment, the disabled discount field. Those student discounts and the blue light, they've been around a long time. I'm sure when they first started, it took a while to build up to those offers they have today. We actually have offers that match a lot of those offers anyway when we do get them, or we've got some that are even slightly higher, even if it's 1%, which is great. Like Menkind, we have 12% off with them. I think it's 1% more than they give to blue light, so that's a win. So that's what I'm always trying to focus on. We get new brands every week and we've got lots of good conversations going on.
So would you say it's a good mix of sort of, the everyday kind of shopping places, like you say, supermarkets and electrical and utilities, but would you say that there's also a mix of like fun brands or, like more in the miscellaneous category?
So we have days out, we have discounts with Merlin, so you can get discounts off theme parks. We've got cinema discounts. So I know if you have a CEA card, you can get one free person with you to the cinema. But if you're going with a group of friends, you can then get a discount on their tickets through our discounts. The same with Love Theatre. So we've got discounts for the theatre. We've got fashion, shoes. We work with brands like Cozy Feet, Pavers. There's jewelry brands, there's technology, there's a whole host, and we're a very small team. There's lots of brands we want to get. There's more that are always coming. It all takes time, but we will get there.
What would you say is the balance between brands that you approach? And I mean, I'm curious, do brands approach you and say, hey, we want to be part of this?
They're starting to, yes. We've definitely had a couple of bigger brands that have reached out to us, which is fantastic. It's sometimes hard as well to get to the right person within the brands. So there's brands on my kind of wish list that I want, but it's reaching the right people. But we have got a partnership with Lego. It's not an ongoing discount, but we had an extra free gift when you purchased through Purple recently with them. And I love Lego. So that was like, oh, I've got Lego on the site, which is a great start. Sometimes you have to start at the beginning with some of these brands and take their kind of discounts that they give to quite a few places to show that you can get some traction, and then you can work towards getting those better discounts with them. So it is a journey with some of them.
I'm curious what that interaction with brands looks like. Obviously you're there to, like you said, get the best discount possible for the disabled community and Purple members specifically, but I'm so interested in how you identify companies that you want to go for. I mean, of course, there'll be ones that are like personally more like important to you or to members of your team, but I'm thinking with all of the companies out there, how are you sort of prioritizing who you want to work with? Is it ones that sort of have a good public like perception in terms of disability or inclusion? What's that sort of process like of deciding who you want to have partnerships with?
Like I said at the beginning, it was we had to get whatever discounts we could. Now we want the ones that actually want to put us on their website as well. They want to give us the best discount in the marketplace. They want to align with us because they truly get what I'm trying to achieve. Because for me, Purple is also a stepping stone to one day having a foundation to give grants to people in our community. And so for me, it's really important that the brands that we work with as we grow are the brands that get it and actually want to be part of that. And also they look at everything else within their business, and hopefully they will, if they're not great at maybe accessibility on their website, they will improve it in time. And maybe purple will be that place that can help engineer that as we grow. We can maybe offer more services. I don't know. There's so much scope for what we can do as we get bigger, but it's such early days that as much as I have all these amazing ideas, the reality is we have a small team and limited resources right now.
Yeah, I mean, I really hear you. Like working, on the wheelchair activist, which is obviously a small, like just me brain driven kind of project, obviously with some incredible brain to like contribute to what we do, but also working at a small charity. It's, looking at, well, here are the resources that I have. What is the most effective way that I can achieve this change, or get this discount with what I've got. And I think because, like as you said, you guys are only a year old, there's going to be so much more that I think will grow. And I just think it's such an innovative way to address the financial barriers that we experience. And I think, also for people who may not know what the blue light card is, I'm thinking, for the international listeners, essentially it's a discount card that's given to people who work for the NHS or the National Health Service, in recognition of them providing a vital service. Of course, the health service and all of the many, many roles that come within that. But I definitely hear you where, some people who work within the NHS could be a person who is making a very large income. But then there are also the people in the NHS who are on very minimal incomes. So it's a really interesting scheme. And I think it's really interesting to look at the places that sort of accept that and which ones don't. Again, for context, for you to receive the blue light discount, I believe, there's a card that you can carry, but then essentially, like you said, the email address is if you have an NHS email or a hospital email, then that's sort of proof enough. And it is a really great thing, but I think you're absolutely right about the disabled community. And I'm really interested in regards to Morrison's because I did a piece of work while I was at Scope on the barriers to the both in-store and the online shopping experience at supermarkets. And, cost was definitely one of those. And, looking at, things like minimum spend requirements and, delivery costs and all of that. So I think it's really interesting and not that, I have a negative perception of them because I don't, but I am surprised that they're the ones who are working with you because, of course, they're also working with Amazon, for example. So, it's kind of interesting to see how they're engaging with potentially like more customers in quite different spaces and different ways.
Yeah. And when you said about the minimum basket, that's one of the things that I made sure we got the £25 basket minimum spend because some disabled people live on their own. Like they don't spend more than £25 or £30 a week on food shop. They don't want a £40 minimum basket. So we always making sure that that discount works for the community. It's got to make sense as well.
And how do you go into those interactions with brands? Obviously, this is once you get to the right person. Yeah, essentially, what's your pitch on why they should do this? And I'm thinking particularly maybe for a company that hasn't done stuff around disability or shown an inclusive customer offer. How does that conversation typically go?
With me, what you see is what you get. And I talk to the brands the same way I talk to anyone else. I talk about why I'm doing this, why it's important, and as a brand, why it's good for them, why they should be doing it, and that the disabled community is very loyal. So if you show that you're an inclusive brand, you're going to reap the rewards from that. Um, I'm just me, and I don't try and be something different. I just say it how it is, really, and that seems to always work in my favor. I think I'm not some pushy person trying to just force them into doing something that perhaps they don't want to do. I just tell my story, and I think that's always enough. It's authentic, it's real.
Mm,
And I think that's what's important. The fact that I am disabled, I'm part of the community. I'm not just
yeah.
someone setting up a business to try and, you know, make money from the disabled community. And I know some might argue, well, we charge a fee for signing up to Purple. We have to. If I didn't, the business probably wouldn't survive, because the running costs of a business are high, and the discount world is not always as it appears in terms of getting commission. And I'm always putting the community first in everything that I do. So I will push for a higher discount. That might mean taking a hit on commission, but that's the right thing to do for the community. We support disabled entrepreneurs. We don't charge them anything for that. We give them back to charities, even though we're only 1 year old. So everything is always about the community first, doing the right thing for the community and giving you access to savings that you wouldn't get if you didn't pay that annual fee, that will help us become the bigger business with the bigger discounts and the bigger savings as we grow and have that charity one day.
And what is that annual cost?
So at the moment it's £4.99 for the year, and that offer ends at the end of August. It will, I think it goes up to £7.99 then, but our annual price is £9.99. That's our yearly cost. But you can get £12 on one shot with Morrison's, and our average members save £15 every code they use. So you can buy something from Ninja and get a fantastic discount. I tell you what, if you haven't got one, a wood fire for the garden is amazing. Beats a barbecue any day in my eyes. And you can save, you'll save way more than your £10 a year fee for that. So it does cost money to sign up, but you will reap back way more than that in benefits. And we also do things like competitions. We also have product reviews. So members can apply to review a product if we have an opportunity to review products. So, there's a lot more to us than just the discounts.
And I think what you said about, you are part of the community and, you're doing this for the community. Yeah. And I think this is something I also want to pick up about privilege, right? Because, something when you and I first spoke that really struck me was that you recognized that you were in a privileged position to be able to afford, the extra things that come with disability. But what struck me was just that you were aware of that and are aware that other people are not in the same position. I think we're seeing that even more with, various threats to disability related benefits. So I think it's important to voice that and to recognize that yes, there is a cost, but I mean, like you say about disabled loyalty, I mean, there is research that shows that disabled people are more likely to spend potentially a bit extra if it is an inclusive customer offer and if the company has made visible steps, changes, offers, whatever it might be, to be inclusive towards disabled people. So I personally understand, the need for you to charge, but I think I also understand that it's it's not me giving money to Jeff Bezos to, be able to access these discount codes. It's me giving an amount of money that, like you said, I will more than likely receive back in discounts, but it's giving a member of the community money to do a project for the community. So it hits very different to me than like a Prime membership. They're never going to sponsor me after this, are they?
The other thing is membership fee allows us to, we've just started working with some charities. We've always been giving charities, but we're working with them in a different way. And it means that we can give them some money from helping us reach their members, because the membership fee allows us to do those kind of things. So there's lots of potentials with that open up more doors for us. So there'll be some things that we want to do for members where we don't make any money from it, but it's good for the community. Then we'll do that. We obviously don't say every time we get a brand or how much it costs or how much we make from it. But believe me, we do a lot to put the community first always. It's always community first.
And what's the reception been like in this first year from the community, from your members?
Amazing. We get such lovely feedback all the time. That's the thing for me. I've reached out in our Facebook group the other day and said, I know Scope are doing they've just opened up their awards for next year. And I was thinking that we should put purple forward. And I was saying, but as part of it, we need feedback from people who use our service. And, some of the messages just are heartwarming. People who are saying that the group as well, not just the discounts, but the group means that they've got somewhere where they can go and talk and they feel like they're heard. They don't feel so alone, I guess. And that's lovely. It's really lovely. And someone who said they bought a dress for the first time because they got the discounts and the savings, and they went to, I think they were going somewhere special. And someone else who said that she was able to go out for dinner with her friends because she'd saved money on other things like her groceries. Some of our members are saving 50, £60 a month just on their food shopping. It's amazing.
Wow. I mean, that's certainly not an insignificant amount of money. I'm so pleased that you are getting that feedback. But, and I, should also say that one of the ways that you and I connected, it's not just because I knew about Purple and I actually was a member anyways, but it was also because you and I were both on the D30 list, which we'll put in the description of this episode, and I talked about in the previous episode about this amazing list that is created of 30 disabled people across the world, honestly, who are trying to do good for our community and are doing like new, innovative, and exceptional things. And I was so glad that you were on that list because as you said, there is no one else doing this. There is no one else looking at engaging with brands in this way. But I think what I like about the discount code particularly is that it still enables choice for the community. I've looked a lot at the different brands that you guys work with, and some of them are sort of disability specific products. I think you have one shop where you can buy like different color walking sticks or, like mobility assistance. So yeah, you've got products like that are, specifically around disability, but you're still enabling choice. It's not like you get X amount of discount on a particular range or on a new line or whatever. It's, whatever you want to buy at that place as much as possible that, you're enabling that. Whereas I think other sort of offers come with different conditions attached to it. I don't know if that resonates with you at all.
Does, and we try, sometimes our discounts do have a minimum spend. We always try not to have that, but with some brands, we just, I don't think we're big enough yet. Maybe when we're much bigger and we have millions of members, then we'll have more bargaining power. But yeah, we prefer the discounts that can be applied for anything. And we don't want to work exclusively with brands because that limits the choice for members, and those brands might not be suitable for that member. So we do try and make sure that we don't limit choice.
And as well, something I wanted to touch on that you mentioned was that you work with disabled entrepreneurs. There were companies on there that were disability specific, and there was one sort of stationery or greeting cards line that did products in Braille. And
Not here about Braille.
yes, exactly. I mean, adorable name, first of all, but I really love that you also spotlight those businesses because I personally know a lot of disabled small business owners and they're doing their absolute best with getting the word out and getting their brand recognized, like, not just within the disabled community, but for anyone. I'm thinking, of a couple of artists that I know who sell various products. And there's the ability to sort of have those brands listed alongside, Lego. And the other really big ones that you've got is is really important visibility for them.
Absolutely. And like I said, purple is about helping the community, and that comes in many different shapes and forms. We do lots of guides, we try and make sure people have the information. I only found out the other week that everyone who's disabled, who's got the documents, can get 25% off Disneyland Paris. I had no idea. I thought that was like a specific discount for a specific group. But actually, if you have a disability letter or a blue card, you can get 25% off. So
I did not know that. That changes things.
exactly. So, we want to share that information, make sure people are aware. Most people can get a free carer place at most places that you go to. Most venues, most attractions will give you a free carer place. You just have to
Mm.
ask. And normally you only have to show your blue badge or a disability letter to get that. There are places that you have to have, like the access card, who we work with, but like Merlin, you need to have that. But for the most part, most places, when you're going out and about, will give you a free space for a carer, which is a little money saving tip because it helps reduce the cost. I know when I go to the cinema with my friends, one of them has my CEA free card, and we split the overall cost between all of us. So we all benefit a little bit.
I think it's really important though that those companion or carer passes are there because, I for people like myself, you don't have the option of going anywhere alone. It does feel so punitive, I guess, that we have to pay for, an extra ticket when, yes, our PAs can become our friends and they can, also be enjoying the event or whatever it is that you're going to, but it's still not a choice that I'm making. If I wanted to go to the cinema alone, that's not an option. So,
Yeah,
it's really important that those things are there, but I think you're absolutely right about making sure that people know what is available and what is reasonable to ask because,
yeah.
there are times where I've booked concert tickets, for example, and there'll be some, venues that are really great about being really upfront and saying, yes, the carer ticket is free, or you also receive a free companion ticket. And other ones you do have to sort of double check, and that can get sorted. But it's empowering, I guess, people with that knowledge of what they are allowed to ask for.
Always ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. That's my theory.
Yeah, very true.
So
Very, very true.
what's the worst they can say? No. I don't think I've ever been anywhere where I haven't got a free carer's place. The only place maybe I think was an aquarium once. But yeah, most
Hmm.
part, I think most places will give you a free place.
I always find it interesting when, and I think this is partly on trains as well, when instead of saying that you get a free carer or companion ticket, they'll say that you get 50% off the companion ticket and 50% off your ticket. So it still is the same
Yeah.
thing, but I just think it's a bit odd how sometimes that's the makeup of it. So it's like, well, you're both getting a discount, but it feels odd. It doesn't really make sense to me.
It's a strange one, isn't it? I know with all the welfare cuts, some of the comments on my TikToks were, saying, why should you get free money and all of this? And I always say, well, you can have my MS. I'll give it to you with my measly bit of PIP money. That doesn't cover anywhere near my costs of my outgoings each year. But do they ever want it? No, they don't want it. So they like to moan about us getting free things. But the reality is, if they walked in our shoes, they would see that the costs are far more than we get in terms of the free stuff.
I've been part of this rhetoric as well with the political debates going on, and it's getting people to understand that PIP or whatever, benefit you receive that's disability related is because it is an established fact that there are extra costs associated with disability. It's not that people feel bad for us, so let's toss you 100 quid. It's to address the fact, like, you mentioned extra heating costs. Like, that's something that I experience, and it's also extra electricity for charging equipment. I can't just choose not to charge my ventilator.
Exactly.
You sort of have to. And, that obviously incurs a cost. And it's to help offset some of those costs. It certainly by no means covers all of them because we're still seeing disabled people who are looking at eating or heating.
Yeah.
And it's in 2025, and it's horrific that people are still in that situation and seeing how little that's understood by the people who are making the proposals, who are making the votes on what happens to our financial futures. And just while we're on this, and I appreciate if you haven't gotten to thinking this through yet, but in light of the potential changes to people who receive financial support from the government relating to disability, what Purple's potential response to that going to be? Because if there are less people who are receiving a disability related benefit, and a lot of those schemes that you mentioned, like the Blue Badge, the Bus Pass, and sort of all of these other things, they are often opened up and made available because you receive disability benefits. So I'm just, yeah, I appreciate if you haven't sort of got an answer, but I was just curious if you thought about if these changes do go through and fewer people are receiving that financial support, but they are still a member of our community, if you've thought about what that future looks like.
Well, we accept an NHS diagnosis letter anyway now. We didn't at the beginning. It takes a bit more resource, but we're well aware of the fact that we need to be adapting to whatever happens in terms of those changes. But most people should or will already have or be able to get a copy of their diagnosis anyway from the NHS. So hopefully that will mitigate the issues that could potentially arise from it. Let's just hope it doesn't
Mm,
happen anyway. I mean, it's crazy and it's a whole nother story, isn't it, to talk about?
mm,
But I'm just going back through my PIP renewal now. So I've sent it.
no.
I pretty much wrote same as, got worse, same as. We shall see what I get back because I don't get for in any of the daily living because I can wash myself. I can't. I need help sometimes getting my shoes off on a particularly bad day, um, or helping me get my shoes on a particularly bad day. But I can wash my body up here, and therefore, even though I can't get in a bath by myself or get out of a bath by myself, I'm not disabled enough. I can't carry plates and stuff. I have to hold on to the walls when I walk around my house and the furniture, or use my sticks or a wheelchair. But I'm not disabled enough to get 4 points in one category. It's
As,
bonkers.
as you said, there's a whole conversation around that where I think we could both probably rant for several hours. I mean, literally, my last episode was just me doing a bit of a rant. So it's really important, but I think it's so good that you already have the system in place for an NHS diagnosis. And there's more detail that we could go into with that, but I think that that is really important that you're recognizing, even if the proposals don't go through, we know that PIP doesn't work. It isn't sufficient, and a lot of people are being rejected from it who would have that overturned on appeal or tribunal, and there's so many flaws within the assessment application process and all of that. So it's really encouraging to hear that you as a company recognize that and you're allowing other channels for people to still receive those discounts and remain part of the community because it's so dangerous. I mean, when you said about being disabled enough, it's such a damaging perspective to put on us. I feel like it pits disabled people against each other and it creates this hierarchy of disability which absolutely shouldn't exist. It should be, do you experience barriers? Go back right back to the social model of disability and look at it from that lens. So it's super interesting to hear sort of your take on that.
I feel like personally, I think the assessment form should be broken into two different forms: physical disability, mental disability. How can you have the same questions, just the same descriptors for completely different disability types? It makes no sense to me.
There's a lot about Pip that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but going back to Purple, do you engage in sort of that level of conversation with brands? Like, do you talk about the financial, obviously you talk about financial barriers, but like, how deep do you go into talking about disability and financials?
Obviously, we speak with people potentially who are affiliate executives, or it might even be through an agency or through an affiliate platform. So we're not always talking directly to a brand anyway, but we always talk about the cost of being disabled. And actually, I quite often say the £1,095 figure, and I say, if I took that out of your pay pack every month, I bet you would notice it.
Oh,
And that's a really good way of like, oh yeah, hang on a minute, that's a lot of money every month, and I had to spend it just on my health. You know, that will shock people. And when I talk about, I've seen, I don't have a permanent wheelchair that I'm in, but I've seen the cost of them. They can be 20, 30, 40,000 pounds, some of them. And when I say that to the people I speak to, they're just gobsmacked. They just have no idea. But then in fairness, I had no idea until my MS impacted my day-to-day life from a disability perspective. The physical aspect of it became more prominent. So I get it. I don't think it's because they don't care. I think a lot of the time is they just haven't been in that world or realized, and no one talks about it. I think we're all very good when we're disabled at hiding behind things. For example, I was talking to someone yesterday and saying, people don't see the times that you crawl across the floor because you can't get off the floor, or your legs are so weak you can't get off the chair and you try 6 times and then you exhaust yourself. They don't see those things. We don't talk about them. I don't talk about those things with my friends unless they see me like that. We always try and portray ourselves as doing
it,
well and coping with life, and most of the
mm,
time we probably do, but the fact is it's really challenging being disabled, and the cost of being disabled. I think people just don't get it because they don't know about it. But when you
yeah.
talk to them about it and they understand, I think then they're like, oh, yeah, I didn't know that. Like paying for
Mm,
physiotherapy, I think people think you just get that from the NHS. You don't get that from the NHS. If you did, you might get a 6-week course.
hmm.
It might be a 6-month waiting list to get that course. You would then have to go to the hospital, or try parking at the hospital, try getting a time that actually suits you rather than a time that's going to be right for the hospital. It's just not practical. And I have physio every other week. It's £130 an hour. It's expensive, but it is key to my keeping moving as much as I can so that I am independent.
Yeah, and it's to, keep your condition as, stable and as, slow progressing as possible so that those, other expenses down the line are further down the line. It is really about weighing up, a cost here equals savings there. It
Absolutely.
I love what you said about if you took it out of the pay packet because it hit me, and obviously it's a figure that I talk about most days, but yeah, when you put it in that context and it's just in the, it's nothing fun. It's also sometimes not even just utilities, like it's day-to-day things that we need and that you say are not paid for or covered by anyone else, partly because there are so many demands on that funding already, but to provide little bits of equipment that, we all have little like hacks, don't we? Like personally, like one of mine is a tray that I bought online that, is just like the right size for me to have my laptop and like work off of, but who am I asking in sort of the government or in the like NHS service provision or occupational therapy, whoever that is, to provide all of these little things that we need? It's not possible.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. And people don't get it. And I don't think it's because they don't want to care. I think just most of the time it's because they've not been subjected to the realities of
Mm,
if they don't know someone who's disabled, they haven't got any friends or family, then they just don't realize those costs. And you're right about I do all of these things to keep me away from the NHS. I
yeah.
very rarely use the NHS. And actually, because I keep so healthy, I'm probably less of a burden potentially than someone who's not disabled who doesn't look after their health because it's really number one priority for me. So
Mm. I think
yeah,
it's a really interesting take, and it is so difficult to quantify because, obviously there's so many, unknowns in that, but it is an important point to make. And obviously I'm not expecting you to share any names, but I'm interested in how many companies that I won't say sort of just contacted, but if we go from who you've had engagement with, so not just sort of a cold reach out, have said no to being part of Purple.
um, very little. And I think when they have said no, it's because it's not the right person anyway, and they probably don't get the bigger picture of what working with Purple is. And I think they were probably people that we contacted early on. And sometimes the systems automatically might reject you anyway because it's for a platform and they have controls set up and we're quite small. So we wouldn't be on their radar as the right fit. But that doesn't bother me. I don't take no as an answer. I'll just carry on. And if I'm keen to get a brand on for a particular reason, then I'll just find a way.
Is there a particular, like a group of job titles that are the right people? Because I'm thinking if people are listening to this and they think, oh, well, I've got an uncle who works at so and so, and even someone who's listening to this might be thinking, I want to get my company involved in this, but who is it typically within a company that you go for? Obviously, every company calls things slightly differently, but what's the general job?
Normally, affiliate or partnership manager, maybe, but it could be the disabled lead within a business, but it's more likely to be an affiliate stroke partnership person. But I'll talk to anyone. I think you find someone in the company who's interested in it. Between the two of us, we would find a way to get to the right person within that company and talk about it. You could just have one advocate for yourself within a business. That makes a big difference.
If anyone's listening to this and they have that uncle or they, work within a company that they think would be interested, then do you want people to reach out to you?
Definitely, we have a hello at thepurpleco.com email address that they can reach out to us on. Or I'm on LinkedIn, they can connect with me on LinkedIn or go through our Purple page on LinkedIn as well. Or Facebook. You contact us any way you like.
All the ways. I will definitely have the website to Purple. I will have all sorts of links in the description of this episode. But before we wrap up, you mentioned Lego sort of being a dream one for you. If you had to pick one other dream company that you'd love to see on Purple, who would it be?
Oh, I definitely would love to get Apple on my website.
I would love for you to get Apple. I'm such an Apple girly. I'm using like four of their products right now. So if you can get me that discount, I will be forever grateful.
I will do my best. Yeah, they would be the dream, wouldn't they? But hard to get through to people. I will keep trying.
If anyone listening to this works at Apple, please, please, share the website of Purple with someone at your organization because I think what's so interesting about Apple is how much accessibility work they already do and that they shout about quite rightly. I mean, I have been an Apple user for a very long time, largely because of how accessible they are.
Yeah,
So it would definitely be a very, very cool partnership.
it would be, wouldn't it? Maybe together we'll come up with a plan. We
Yeah,
can,
I'll just go with all my Apple gear and cry in their office until they do it.
yeah, I'm the same. I've always been an Apple fan.
Apple sponsor this podcast, if nothing else. Well, Georgina, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and hearing all about purple. Like I said, all of the links will be in the description box for this episode and also on my website, thewheelchairactivist.com. And I should also say that I have joined your affiliate programs. I will also have my affiliate link to Purple, if anyone would like to use that. There are honestly a huge range of brands. I was blown away, even a good few months ago with how many companies and brands that you work with and the range of them, and I can only imagine it's grown. So I absolutely, absolutely recommend people joining. And yeah, Georgina, thank you so much for joining me on this episode.
Thank you for having me. It's been lovely, really lovely. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Wheelchair Activist. If you want to stay up to date and catch all of our previous episodes, you can find them all on my website, thewheelchairactivist.com. You can also follow me on social media at emma.vogelman on most platforms. And if you'd like to support the podcast, our links to the GoFundMe and Buy Me a Coffee are in this episode description. And I'm so excited to bring you another episode next month. See you then.